Lost.
You know what? You want to know something? We're all going to be arrested for that.
Welcome, friends and fans, to another edition of GalaxyCon Live, where we are bringing the convention experience directly to you. And today we are indeed going back to the Land of the Lost with several of its cast and creators. So without further ado, let's walk into the pylon, mess with the crystals, and see who appears. Our first guest, he is a Hugo and Nebula award-winning screenwriter and novelist, renowned to Star Trek fandom as the creator of the Tribbles, but today he joins us as the creator and script editor of Land of the Lost. Please welcome David Gerrold.
Hello there.
Hello, David.
Welcome to GalaxyCon.
Absolutely. Oh, no, that's my word. Well, I say that. Welcome to GalaxyCon.
Well,
David.
yeah, I mean, your audience, you know.
I know.
There we go.
All right. That's good. David, how are you?
I'm good. Very good. Yeah, it's a nice Sunday morning. The weather's good. I've had a little coffee. I need a lot more, but I haven't had a chance to make it yet, so I'll manage.
You'll absolutely make it, sir. It's an absolute pleasure to finally meet you. And I just want to say a big admirer of your body of work. And I hope someday we can sit down and do a solo event, because I would love to go into all your contributions to so many works and media that I've really enjoyed over the years.
That would be a lot of fun. Thank you. Yes.
Absolutely. And I promise we would talk more than just the Tribbles.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And next, our guest, he was one of the sinister Sleestak performers. Please welcome Bill Boyd. Do we have
Bill?
Hello, Bill. Going one there.
There's
All right.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
I have to tell you, those Sleestak were pretty scary in person. You know, I'm 6 feet tall, and I'd walk on the set, and they're 9 feet tall. You guys were scary as hell.
Well, it's no surprise that my career went nowhere after that role.
Well, Bill, I gotta echo what David said. Maybe you're just limited by the costumes themselves, but the slouching and the sliding and the moving and the post effects of the hissing, the big glassy eyes, and the fact that they only came out at night. As a kid, the Sleestaks were truly terrifying, and your versions of the Sleestaks that you performed in are still the best ones of all time. The minute they gave them irises and pupils in later generations, it got a little lost.
Well, thanks to Sid and his creative people, it created to this day. There's not a person I can bump into. They all follow the family. They all love the family, but none of them like the Sleestaks, and rightly so. But it was a real pleasure just to be around so much talent. And that whole staff and the team, the Krofft team. What a pleasure for a college athlete in those days.
I know. It must be interesting to have a dual fandom career of having something really interesting to say to a sports fan and having something interesting to say to a sci-fi fan. Usually you don't get that.
No, it's a unique combination.
Absolutely. Bill,
let me make a point here. I imagine the Sleestaks very carefully when I described them, and you know that they would be tall. We'd put them on stilts. They'd build up the headpiece. And the first time I walked on the set and saw the actual costumes, I was amazed because they were even better than I had imagined. And the guys who brought them to life is like, oh God, what did I do?
Absolutely. Bill, absolute pleasure to have you here. Thanks for joining us. And our next guest, from various monster roles in Sigmund and the Sea Monster to the Land of the Lost original Alpha Pacuni Ta, please welcome Joe Giamalva.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I am good, Joe. How you doing?
Good. Other than taking a few minutes and making everybody a little nervous, I'm here.
You're here. We can hear you. You can hear us. We can see each other. It's all good.
Great.
I see.
Thanks
I see. You're rocking the brand behind you there. What is that behind you there? Is that
That's my original game board, The Land of the Lost?
That's the game. Okay. Yeah. One of those ones I always wanted but never got for Christmas. But
my picture's not on the cover, but that's all right.
Okay. That's okay. So, Joe, Bill, while,
Yeah.
I got you guys both here, who do you think had the harder suit to wear?
Ooh.
That wetsuit we got into each that was a hard. In fact, during lunch break or our breaks, we would just peel down half the suit and walk around half Sleestak and half man. We just
That's right.
Joe, but I never got to see in your makeup, or did it take a while to get your costume on?
Yes, it did. As a matter of fact, I think Sharon and I used to arrive, and Phil, we used to arrive at like 5 or 6 in the morning. It took several hours to put it on. And I have to say, of all the costume characters that I've done, it was the most difficult because it was, you know, stuck to your body, you know, and then the makeup, and we had false teeth, and we had a different language, and we couldn't get after work. We couldn't get in the car and drive home. We had to take a shower because we looked so people would have had wrecks on the freeway. So we had to take a shower before we went home.
Even in LA, they would have been taken aback.
Exactly. Back then too, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring out our next guest because he joins us as the youngest of the Pakuni tribe, Chaka, and the enigmatic entity known as the Builder. Please welcome Phillip Paley.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Phillip, great to see you again, boss. How you been?
Good to be seen. I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I am well in my corner of the world, and yeah, like I said, so just real quick, what's the shortest version you can talk about your fur experience over the show?
My fur experience was a good one overall. I mean, it was hard work, but a lot of fun, and a great cast and a great crew and the producers and everything. It was just, it was a wonderful experience overall. And
you became the breakout character, eventually joining the cast full time in the final season.
Yeah.
That's always good. And speaking of the cast, our next guest joins us as the domesticator of Dopey, the baby Brontosaurus, the awesome Harley Marshall herself. Please welcome Kathy Coleman.
Did you just call me Harley Marshall?
No, Harley Marshall. Holly Marshall. Harley Marshall. No,
Harley.
No. Holly Marshall. Kathy, how are you?
I'm good. Patty, how are you, sweetie?
I am doing well. It's an absolute pleasure to see you again. Everything has been well in your corner of the world?
Yeah, everything's going really good. We just came back out of 3 different conventions and got to meet a lot of people and had a good time. And yeah, life is good.
Awesome. Well, it's absolutely
got to hang out with my castmates, and I love them. It was the best gift that ever came out of being on Land of the Lost, is having them in my life. I just adore them.
Well, then let's waste no time in bringing the rest of them out. Next, he is an actor and producer whose body of work includes Chomps, Days of Our Lives, and Dragon Tales. Today joins us as the intrepid Will Marshall. Please welcome Wesley Eure.
Hey.
Hey.
My entire performance, because I started as a Shakespearean actor as a young kid, and my entire performance on Land of the Lost was, "Run, Holly, run! There's a dinosaur!"
Wesley, how have you been, boss?
I've been great. Listen, I have been so excited about doing this show today. I mean, to have everybody on board, David, Gerrold, and Bill, and Joe, and Sid, and Kathy and Phil too. But I see Kathy and Phil a lot. So this is for us. This is like Christmas. So thank you for putting this together.
Absolutely. Once again, great to see you again. And finally, our final guest, he is a producer and writer and puppeteer whose name is synonymous with Saturday morning entertainment. His body of work includes classics such as HR Puffa Stuff, Lidsville, Electro Woman and Dyna Girl, The Krofft Super Show, and so much more. Today he joins us as the producer of Land of the Lost. Please welcome Sid Krofft.
Hey.
Yay.
Oh my God. Hey, Wesley, you just said you were looking forward to today.
Yep.
Oh my God, me too. I was so looking forward because, first of all, I want to thank all of you up on the screen, and there are more, that gave us the biggest hit you know, we had 26 shows on there, all network shows. And Land of the Lost, that was the #1 show for us. And what really blows me away is that after all these years, that's 48 years ago. And after all these years, people, the fans out there, they haven't turned us off. They have followed us all these years, and they know the theme song. They know the characters. They know all the stories. You know, the Sleestaks. It's just amazing to me. So I want to thank all the fans out there for hanging out with us all these years, and we're going to have a blast today. So let's rumble. Let's go and see what your questions are today, and we're so happy to answer them. And don't feel like, well, I don't know if I should ask that question. We're open for everything that you know you're thinking about, because we want to make everybody happy out there. So thank you, fans. Thank you so much.
And Sid, on behalf of myself and the fan, our audience, everybody else, thank you, and thank you to all these incredibly talented people. Land of the Lost is truly unique in the sense of I saw as a little kid. Okay, it's dinosaurs and running. It's all good and dandy. And when I revisited the show about a decade and a half ago, I was kind of gobsmacked at just how much hard sci-fi and how many layers were into this, and the mythology and the pylons and everything else and what was going on there. And so I figured out that's why my dad would watch it with me. He was not a Saturday morning guy at all, but he would sit and like, he would nod his head, and he was along for the ride. And the rest of the fans out here for the Land of the Lost, we've been on this ride for a long time. Thank you all. And on behalf of everybody, I thank you for your talents. I thank you for these performances, and I thank you for what you brought to the show.
Well, I got to tell you, Patty, it's David Gerrold.
Yes.
Because when David came in as the showrunner, I mean, we handed him, you know, actually the story started off, yeah, David, everybody's pointing to David. What we presented to David at the beginning was the Swiss Family Robinson. That was sort of the idea that we started with, and it's just amazing what you've done, David. You are absolutely the king, and I thank you so much.
Let me tell you the secret to the writing. There were two things I did that I felt made the show a success, and the first was I hired better writers than me. I hired Dorothy Fontana and Larry Niven and Ben Bova and Norman Spinrad and Rena Sturgeon and Margaret Arman and especially Dick Morgan. And Walter Koenig. I'm probably forgetting a couple, and I apologize for that. But the second thing I did was I said, we're writing a primetime show that for adults and kids can watch it too. In other words, I knew that we were going to have an audience of people tuning in for the dinosaurs of all ages. So I said, let's write a show that adults will have a good time watching and teenagers will have a good time watching, but it's still a show that the little kids will enjoy as well. And that was the secret, is to make it an all-age show. And I think that's one of the reasons why it has been such a success for so many years. And I'm very proud of that part.
David, can I jump in?
Thank you again.
David, can I jump in for a second?
Please.
I want to ask you, and we've never brought this up. Do you know how you got the job?
No, I don't. Well, what I knew was I was over at Filmation, and I wasn't going to do Tarzan because Edgar Rice Burroughs Jr. had been very rude to me, and I told Lou Scheimer I wasn't going to do it. And Joe Terratero was there and said, "There's this show over at the Krofft that needs a showrunner. Do you want to have a look? And I said, yes. That's what I knew. What was your side of it, Sid?
Wow, we were shooting. It might have been Lidsville, and I heard that Roddenberry was on the other stage, and of course I dropped everything and I went over because my whole life I wanted to meet that man, and he knew the stuff that we had already done. He knew our names, and he was really kind. And I told him about Land of the Lost. We just got the order. It was right after Lidsville, because Land of the Lost was our 5th show. And I asked him if he would get involved, and he said he was so over, booked in writing his books and all. He was doing a pilot for something on the other stage, and I don't remember what it was, but he mentioned your name, David. He said, there's this young guy. Yes, and that's how I remember that happening. Yeah. So it wasn't Joe, and maybe it was Joe too, putting a stamp on it, because it was Roddenberry that gave us your name. He said, there's this young guy. Maybe he even called you a kid, and he said, wow, he's going to be the big hot writer. And I remember that day, because
that's good to hear. Thank you. I never heard that before. That's really quite a story.
Yeah. That quote's going to be on the cover of David's next book. Roddenberry.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Roddenberry recommended.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's amazing. So.
Can you imagine the moment for me meeting this man?
Yeah.
I mean, he was, the god of what Land of the Lost was all about, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. One of the things that had made Star Trek work so well was Harlan Ellison had convinced Gene for the first season to hire as many science fiction writers as he could. So he had Robert Bloch and Richard Matheson and Jerry Saul and Max Ehrlich and Norman Spinrad and Harlan and I forget who else. Theodore Sturgeon. And so, I took my notes from there. I said, to make Land of the Lost work, I'm going to get the best science fiction writers I can find, because this is really a science fiction show. And so I learned a lot from Gene Roddenberry on that, and from Harlan and a few others. I paid attention. But I have to say, let me say this. For me, it was a privilege, because I had been a fan of the Kroffts for many years, starting with there had been this puppet show I had read about called Le Poupée de Paris. And I thought, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. And I thought, I want to see that show. Well, I never got to see it, but I saw lots of pictures of it. And I said, and so I knew who the Kroffts were. And when Joe Terratero said, I want you to go over and meet the Kroffts. I said, oh, yeah. So I was really, for me, it was really just, a dream job. It really was.
Well,
I get to work on a show I love doing with people who are absolutely wonderful.
Well, thank you. Le Poupée de Paris, you have to be 21 to see it. So maybe you were
Oh, then I couldn't.
I
was too young. I wouldn't have gotten in.
No. And Le Poupée de Paris, for the fans out there, it was a show that we did, probably the biggest puppet or marionette show ever produced. And it took 3 months to install it. It played at 3 World's Fairs. It opened at the Seattle World's Fair, the New York Fair. But that little puppet show, well, it wasn't little, it was huge, played to 9.5 million people in 9 years.
Wow.
And it really put us on the map, because opening day, you're going to love this story. Opening day in Seattle, the Seattle World's Fair. Why are you laughing, Wesley?
I am so relishing in these stories. I love listening to these stories. I've told people that you'll call me on the phone, and I don't have a conversation. I have a listen. And your stories are just the most amazing stories ever.
Well, come on. I've been in this business for 82 years.
Wow.
And I started, okay, I started as a street performer with my puppet that I paid $3.95 for. I was in vaudeville. I was in burlesque. I was in a Broadway show that ran a year, a theater right next to Radio City Music Hall. It was called Center Theater. It was the sister theater, exactly like Radio City, but it sat 2,000 people less than Radio City. And I traveled with the Ringling Brothers Circus. I got to tell you, when the Ringling Brothers Circus sat 15,000 people in the big top, we don't even, can you imagine? It was as big as Madison Square Garden. There were amazing. 1,800 people in the cast.
Wow.
So when Cirque du Soleil says, "Oh, we got 36," we had 1,800. So,
there you go. There you go.
So anyway, just to get back to Les Poupées, on opening day at the Seattle World's Fair, Kennedy was supposed to cut the ribbon, President Kennedy, and Billy Graham. Kennedy couldn't come, and Billy Graham did the opening. But we were sponsored by the Seattle World's Fair, our show, in the most beautiful theater that they built. As a matter of fact, when you walked into the theater, it was a big French garden, and there was no stage. And when the show started, we revolved the whole audience around to the stage. And the girls, when I say girls, the puppets came out of the ceiling. There was a cast of 250 in that show of puppets. Wow. So Billy Graham would not come backstage because that was part of the show where the whole audience after the show got to come backstage and see all the girls in their dressing room getting dressed to leave the theater and see the mechanism. It took 3 months to install this piece of machinery. Okay, so Billy Graham wouldn't come back, but that night he had a rally of 100,000 people. He said, "Don't go see a show called Les Poupées de Paris because the women don't wear bras. They were puppets." Well, that put us totally on the map. We hit, hit Time magazine. I mean, that's what put us on top. So thank you, Billy Graham, wherever you are.
Oh my! Let me throw this out. Everybody walking into a series, of course, has high hopes and everything else. But when did each of you begin to suspect that maybe Land of the Lost was actually possibly exceeding expectations? Or in other words, when did somebody say, "Wait, you're on Land of the Lost"?
No, you don't know until it gets on the air. But we knew, even the first day, we just absolutely knew that we were onto something. But what the fans don't know, it almost all didn't happen because we could not marry the dinosaurs with it wasn't on film, and we couldn't marry the two together. And all the engineers in Hollywood, came to help us, even Disney. And of course, the last moment before we were supposed to deliver the first show, we made it work. So we knew, didn't we, Wesley?
Well, listen, Sid, as a cast, we walked in and we had 2 sound stages, and it was overwhelming. We had one whole sound stage that was a jungle with a lagoon and the exterior of our cave, and the next sound stage was our makeup rooms, but with the interior of the cave and the biggest blue screen. Back then, it was blue screen, not green screen. It was. I mean,
the
problem with it was the reverse. But
the problem with marrying the dinosaurs with the live action was frame rates. Television is 30 frames, and film was 24. Right. For me, the real excitement started when I went over to Gene Warren Studios, and Gene Warren Jr. had built the Lost City, and I saw the dinosaur puppets that he was animating, and I said, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And that was when I started to get really excited, that because I could start to see what it was going to look like, and it was looking better than I had imagined. So it was wow, we're really doing something special here. And so when the cast arrived and the sets were built, it was like, yeah, okay, I'm on board. This is, you know, and watching, I think watching the casting procedure, finding the right people for Will and Holly and Spence was also very, very exciting.
Well, David, that was Wesley. Wesley was the first to be cast. He came to my house one Sunday to go swimming. I didn't know him. A friend of ours brought him to my house, and we just got the order, and I said, Wesley, I want you. I don't get involved because it tears me apart when actors come in for a job, you know, because I experienced that in my own career, that where you get rejected. And we had a casting person. I said, I want you. This was Sunday. I said, tomorrow morning, the first thing in the morning, you go in, you call this number, and I want them to see you. Boom. He got the job. We didn't look at anybody else. And it was because of Wesley that we got to cast, you know, his sister.
Yeah. There were a couple other names that got floated, but I got to tell you, everybody in the front office was in love with Wesley, so we want Wesley.
He started it, and he's responsible, and you're going to take the blame, okay, Wesley? That's it.
It was. I got to tell you, it was the best pool party I ever went to.
It was.
Dan, do you remember Trudy Bennett?
Oh God!
Oh my God!
Oh yeah!
Trudy.
That's the first person I met on the interview. Trudy Bennett.
Well, wait, Kathy and Phil, you guys had worked together before, and suddenly you go in and see each other at Land of the Lost casting, right?
Right. We actually, well, I went on probably 2 callbacks, and then on like the 3rd callback, when I was pretty sure that I was getting this part, I come in and Phil's in the lobby area with where Trudy was, of course. And I said, what are you doing here? He said, I'm trying out for a show. And I said, yeah, so am I. I said, what one are you trying out for? He goes, it's called Land of the Lost. I go, me too. And so, yeah, it was a kick in the pants that he was there, and we were going to be possibly working together again, because we had played brother and sister like a year and a half or 2 years prior to that on a Cheez-Its commercial.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was really fun. And plus, we had actually even been friends prior to the Cheez-Its commercial. We had our own little brat pack of like kid actors that all hung out together, and Phil and I were a part of that.
But I got to tell you something, Chaka, that character, how you brought that character to life, and really, I mean, that character has become, just like the Sleestaks, a forever character. That name, you know, just Sleestak. And thank you, David. You gave him that name. And
well, it's become like the lexicon. You hear people call each other Chaka. There's bands called Chaka. There's all sorts of stuff. There's people called. We watched the news. I was watching the news the other day, and somebody referred to a tall guy on the news. Said he's a Sleestak.
He's a
It's called a lexicon of pop culture now. And I think Marty once said to me that the Sleestak, I think, came on in the 3rd episode, and when they came on, the ratings through the roof at NBC. Became their highest rated show.
Oh yeah. Well, it always was. You know, it went from NBC to CBS when they were, because children's television, usually one season, you know, it doesn't last hardly more than that. But, you know, David, you said something about we wanted the adults to watch. Well, our first show was HR Puffin Stuff. And if that didn't work, we wouldn't be sitting here talking at all. As a matter of fact, I probably would have gone back to do my act, or we were doing puppet shows at Six Flags, and I was really happy about doing that because I directed them and created them and did the whole 9 yards. And that was so much fun. Okay, so then when we got the order for Puffin Stuff, before we started writing, I said, the parents now, the mom and maybe the dad, sit with their children in those days and watch Saturday morning. Now television is a babysitter for kids. The parents are too busy, you know, both working, trying to make a living. And I said, I want the dialogue to be that the parents understand it and the parents laugh at it, at the jokes, because even if the kid doesn't understand it, he's going to laugh with the parent. And then years later, you know, the kids come back and tell me at Comic-Con or wherever we are, you know, that grew up with it. Wow, that was the funniest joke. Or they, you know, as they grew up, they kept watching it over and over again. So David, you know, what you said was really important in all of our shows. I didn't want to do Ring Around the Rosie because kids were in school 5 days a week, you know? Mm-hmm. So I'm taking up the whole 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Put me up.
That's surprising.
You know, Patty, you're the referee. Just say, Sid, cut. No.
All right, Sid. Enough out of you.
I'll tell you what, though, we are good to go on our audience questions. So let's go ahead and pivot over to them. What do you say about that? Okay.
Wow.
Here's one from Madison, and Madison wants to know if you could spend a day with your Land of the Lost character, what would you do? And David and Sid, you guys can pick a character.
What, from Land of the Lost?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I would have a little tea party with Chaka and a Sleestak. I mean, are you kidding? Scare the shit out of all my neighbors. Yeah. No, that's what I would do. What about you?
The thing about it, that no one ever...
I think Enoch. I think Enoch would be very interesting.
If you did catch one of the kids. And thanks for creating the world's worst bow and arrow. The arrow actually went end over end in one scene that wasn't very dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be fun, interesting to interview Enoch.
Yeah.
So and find out, you know, where did you come from? What was your world like? And, you know, why are you here? Enoch was a very tragic character.
Very.
So,
David, I think it's important to say who wrote the episode of Enoch, which the Star Trek fans go nuts when they find this out.
Oh, that was Walter Koenig. And he wanted to name the character Enoch, which would have been Gene backwards. And I said, I don't think so. Let's just... Yeah. And so I said, let's make him Enoch, which is Kine backwards, which is cinema. So I think it was a little annoyed at that, but for some reason I just didn't want to have that callback to Gene. Maybe we should have, but I just felt it's a little too much of an Easter egg.
Yeah.
Patty, at the Star Trek conventions, Walter Koenig comes by Kathy and my table, and he comes, he shuffles along, and he goes, "That damn Sid Marty Krofft! I should have gotten residuals, Freenik. I should have gotten residuals."
Well, the contract, the Writers Guild contract at the time didn't allow for residuals for reuse of a character. Dorothy Fontana was very instrumental in getting that into the next contract, because Star Trek was reusing Sarek and Amanda that she had created, and she wasn't getting paid for it. So.
Hey, David, tell the audience, I'm sure you knew that we did this show for $1.98. You know,
the budget on the show was something like, if I remember correctly, $35,000 an episode. And I'm going, how the hell are we doing this for $35,000? This is, some of this stuff is bigger than we did on Star Trek. How can we afford this?
Yeah, but David, I got to tell you something. And then we went and did the movie, which I had nothing to do with. Yes. And they always would turn their back on me when I was on stage, you know, the writers or whatever, you know, and the movie was done for $200 million, and look what they did to our characters. You know,
they spent more on craft services than we spent on a whole season.
We shot 2 episodes a week.
Right.
You only gave us 2.5 days per episode.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey,
well, it wasn't Sid. It was Marty cracking the whip. We got to make the budget work, you know.
Oh, now you really spoiled my day. Hey, Patty, let's ask another question.
Let me get Kathy.
I would have said hang out with Erica Hagen, who played me in the future, the episode Elsewhere,
the Ronnie
Montana. But I already checked that off of my bucket list. But I would like to go horseback riding with Holly. She can ride Dopey, and I'll bring a horse. And I would love to do all the little things that I did as a child with that little girl again as my, my grown self.
Oh, cool!
I dig that.
That is really cool.
That's good.
The audience just loved both of you, Wesley, you know, and you. Wow, we got more mail for the both of you. You know, Wesley, the girls went crazy over, and all the guys, wow, they just tons and tons of mail every week.
Sid, when Kathy and I do shows, we have a nickel between us. Because I don't go, if I had a nickel for every time a guy says you were my first crush, so every time that happens, I push the nickel towards Kathy. And if somebody comes to me and says, like, Wesley, I had the biggest crush on you, Kathy goes, she pushes the nickel back.
That's funny.
Nice. Phillip, what character would you like to spend the day with?
Wow. It's a toss-up between, I think, hanging out with my own character and having him show me around the Land of the Lost and all the secret places that, like, maybe the show we never got to see.
Yeah.
Either that or maybe, spend a day with Sleestak's crossbow practicing out, in a park somewhere with targets, like you used to do when you were a kid.
Hey, what about Joe? What about Joe? I mean, Joe.
I was trying to think about what character. I think it would be us, we characters as us, because that show brought so many people in my life that some are not here still, who were my family because I was a kid that came from Texas, and I met Van Snowden, and I met Wesley and Kathy and Phillip, Sharon Baird, Patty Maloney. Patty and Van and Sharon and I lived in the same apartment building. So when we would go home at night, we'd go to one of our apartments and have a glass of wine and talk about the day. And I mean, to me, in my life, knowing people for over 50 years is totally amazing to me. It's that I have survived that, and that Philip's been to my home in LA and he's cooked a meal for us. I mean, this is, it's just, that's the part of the entertainment business that really amazes me, that we still can have each other. And we did good stuff, and we know that our legacy will be that we did good stuff. You know, I was in Puffin, I was Ludacris in Puffin stuff. You know, the first show, and then from there I went to the next show, and Sharon was there, and Patty was there, and you know, we just were like we were and still are a family. I love these people more than some of my own family.
And don't forget that you did all the traveling shows.
Yes, we toured.
Yeah, all the Puffin stuff and all.
And may I say, we miss Billy Hayes and oh my God, Louise Duarte. So many people. I've been really blessed.
Absolutely. So
love you all.
Wesley, bring us home. Who would you spend the day with?
Oh my God! You know what? I would spend it with Sid.
The greatest character of all.
Hey Wesley.
Wesley.
And listen, can I just say something, and then you can do it. You need to see a doctor, Wesley.
Listen, Sid, I met you at your swimming pool. I'd drag you to the Land of the Lost Lagoon, and I would sit there and just regale.
Thank you so much.
Wesley.
Yeah?
Be willing to listen.
Madison, great question. Thank you so much. Let's see if we can squeeze in one more. This is going to come from Johnny, who wants to know, is the Marshall family still trapped in the Land of the Lost, or do you think they finally made it out?
No.
Well, if we didn't make it out, you're all in it.
Vegas is the Land of the Lost, and that's where I am.
The episode Circle was written to suggest that they got out, but because they got out, there was a hole in time which sucked them in the first place previously.
Yes.
So, which was a very complicated story, but the kids got it. I had to explain it to some of the adults, though. But yes, they got out.
It's my favorite episode, and it ended, I think, season 1. So it was. I think it was there in case we didn't get a season 2. So there was.
That's right. Just in case we didn't get renewed, I wanted to give the audience closure.
You know, most of the mail that we got with all of our shows, of course, from kids, but most of them were from college kids, because on Saturday morning, they'd smoke a joint and watch our psychedelic shows. But I got to tell you, that was the biggest question. When are they getting home? The kids that, but why? If I got them home, we wouldn't get picked up. So, so forget that. Yeah.
I think they got home, but I think over the strain in my own head canon, other families and other people have found themselves in there. So I think there's always a human family or a human group of some kind that's always there having adventures, and poor Enoch is the one who never got out. At least that's my theory. So anybody else got one? In forever, out forever? Well, there you go. Johnny, you got your answer, and you got it from David himself, the causality. And panelists, it's been an absolute delight. I said, any final words before we go?
Yeah. We have to sing the theme song, for gosh sakes.
That was why I was saying.
What is wrong with you?
That's what I was about to say. Any final words for our audience? And
ready? I know there's a time delay. You ready? Let's sing it over. Marshall, Will, and Holly. On a routine expedition, met the greatest earthquake of them all. High in the rapids, it struck their tiny raft. Long turned down 1,000 feet below to the land of the lost.
Lost.
You know what? You want to know something? We're all going to be arrested for that.
I think that was the worst.
That really didn't sound too good.
Well, listen, it's Zoom. We got
Distinguished guests, thank you for joining us on the GalaxyCon virtual stage. Thank you to our audience for joining us. Thank you for your great questions. Hope to see you all again soon. Until then, bye-bye, everyone. Take care, and remember that smiles are free. Spend them often.
Thank you to the fans.